So let's go into this, your practice, the thing people are writing about is the art of verbal self-defense. Maybe first you could just define that, explain what it is, and then we can go to some really cool examples I found in this literature written about you. So would you first define what verbal self-defense is?
Yeah, it's something we've already been talking about, which is it can be great to lead, be on top. It can be great to follow, be on bottom and receive, learn, right? Teacher, student, we see these dynamics everywhere. What happens when you're put on the spot and you don't like what you're getting? What happens when you're put on the spot and you don't like what you're getting and you freeze? So verbal self-defense, the focus of that part of the curriculum is specifically giving a woman tools for when her system shuts down. She has 1,000 thoughts racing in her head, but can't get them out. All her attention is inward. How do you give her access to language back? How do you give her her voice back? How do you get her attention out to see the other and be able to speak? So that's the verbal self-defense, the online course, the live events. They're all about training the body over and over and over again to recognize the moment she's frozen and use a few simple tools in order to get unfrozen and actually be in that conversation with agency and, even better, play. Powerful playfulness.
I love this example in the New York Magazine, so I'm just going to read it verbatim. So she's talking about a guy going to a dominatrix. Dominatrix have very strict guidelines about what happens in the session. And so if a dude walked in and said, "Hey, this is nice and all, but when are we going to fuck?" A line Urbaniak and certainly many a young Hollywood actress has heard. Kasia students are taught to respond with a playful domination. Is that what turns you on? Making demands. And I read that, I laughed out loud. I'm not a big laugher out louder in general, but I really like that. I mean, it really just struck home of the disruption and the change. And so I thought that was an amazing example of how you can use words to disrupt a man's forward, concentrated, narrow-minded focus. I want to fuck. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's play.
Yeah, that tool is called turning the spotlight. And the essence of it is actually asking a question about the question. Because it's the quickest way to flip the power dynamic. You're on the spot, you're on the bottom, he's on the top. You feel the pressure to answer. It even applies to receiving uncomfortable questions like, why don't you have kids yet? Aren't you too young to have this kind of job? And a simple way to flip the power dynamic and turn the spotlight is to ask a question about the question. Do you like making women uncomfortable? Isn't that a personal question for you to be asking right now? The dungeon question came from me training dominatrixes. So not only was turning the spotlight a way to handle the situation, it was a segue into a whole session. It was a segue into a whole stream of speech. Oh, you like breaking the rules, do you? You like provoking women. You act like you're here to be a submissive, but really you want to provoke me. Are you asking for punishment so early on in the session? Is that how you like to play? You think that you can provoke me and get me to give you punishment right away before I deemed it ready, before I deemed it time? Or are you just so clueless that you need to come to a woman wearing leather to tell her exactly how to be, exactly what to do, how to behave? Is that so? Are you looking for a governess or a police officer? It would end up being the thing that could run the whole hour. The fact that he came in and said, so this is nice and all, but when are we going to fuck?
I like it. I mean, I'm thinking personally, not that I've ever been in a dominatrix-like situation. There's time, granted, there's time. And the verbal play, I mean, the verbal play of it is such a turn on. It's like, oh, I'm with a woman who we can joust and debate. I'm sure certain men, there's a segment of men who would just be like, huh? And then get angry to be challenged. And at the same time, I think the play of it is actually really the exciting part. Probably even more sometimes
Then
exciting than the sex.
there's a second tool for when they get riled up called location, where you just fill in the blank of this sentence. It seems like blank. Is that true? It seems like this has gotten you angry. Is that true?
Hmm.
I mean, it's the same thing. And this flipping of the dynamic can even work in something simple as a cat call. So a man yells, "Nice tits." Even saying something innocuous back, like, "Where did you get those shoes?" has a woman break out of the freeze and experience herself having agency.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have to come up with something as clever as, "Do you talk like that to your mama?" You know?